are at the RSS conference in Edinburgh, and I have a pleasure of having Sheila Bird. Sheila, you had an interesting title, Learning from a Random Sample of the History of the RSS External Relations, sort of talk at the conference. What is it briefly about?
Well, I took a 1 in 25 random sample of choosing 1 year from each of our past quarter centuries to discover through the journals of the Royal Statistical Society what our fellows had been doing in terms of external relations. When the Founders' Day meeting was being put together and everybody was giving a talk on the history of research, the journals and so on, somebody had said to me, well, for external relations, you don't really need to bother with the history. But I thought it might be rather arrogant to make that assumption. And indeed, our founders had done a fantastic job in terms of relating to peers, both scientific peers and parliamentary peers, and also journalists in the early days of the Royal Statistical Society.
Sounds fascinating. And what is the statistical, is there a statistical model that can be of interest, or is it more the historical talk?
Well, I think it was more the topics that the founding fellows were interested in. So, for example, the first sample year was 1839, in which the Society set up a committee to investigate the impact of the Poor Law. And described this as a great experiment, although at that time they had no notion, really, of experimental design. And then there were papers on the mortality of troops in the United Kingdom, on the price per mile of a railway journey, which actually was in that same topic was covered in the Times supplement at last weekend. They were interested in crime in England and Wales. And there was an inquiry by the Reverend John Clay into criminal statistics in Preston. And he produced a table of the sentences that had been given. And they did not bear witness to fine judicial discrimination, because in terms of imprisonment, the offenders got either 1 year or were sentenced to transportation for 7 years or for 14 years, very little times in between. And then we moved on to papers by Augustus Guy on the proper functions of a statistical society. And his motivation was to ensure the place of statistics amongst the sciences, and to draw attention to the two aspects of the planning of experiments or the planning of studies, and also the time taken for the careful analysis and presentation of the results. But he did seem to acknowledge that sometimes that took statisticians rather a long time, because he had this phrase, as the statist thinks, the bell clinks. And so on through to the last of my survey years, sample years, which was 1985, when Walter Bodmer was president of the Royal Statistical Society, and his presidential address was on understanding statistics. And he distinguished 3 levels of understanding. First of all, for everyone in a democracy. Secondly, for professionals who have to deal with the interpretation of information. And thirdly, for professionals from data gatherer to mathematician. And he was a student of R.A. Fisher, and he commended Fisher's design of experiments for its clear exposition of the principles of design, experimental design, including and in particular randomization. And he said that if all scientists, whether social scientists, medical scientists, or from the physical sciences, understood only this, then much would have been gained.
And do you think the understanding of statistics by everyone and maybe by the professionals who need to interpret the data, maybe say in the government, has improved over the years of this time society exists?
Yes, I think that the Royal Statistical Society has paid, of course, particular heed to counting with confidence, both in a working party report on just that topic, which laid the foundations for, first of all, the Statistics Commission, and now the UK Statistics Authority and the Statistics Act. So it has been a central concern of the Royal Statistical Society through its past 25 years. And I think now, in our external relations, we have to recover some of the influence that our early founders had. We almost need to have, again, a posse of peers, be they scientist peers or parliamentary peers, because, again, our founding fathers, half of them were fellows of the Royal Society, doctors, lawyers, who were represented on the council of the Society. And in fact, in our first 25 years, all of the presidents of the Society were titled. Now, we don't necessarily need to go to those lengths, but I think we do need to have again other scientists and parliamentary peers being advocates for statistical science.